John Wick is currently out in theaters with its fourth chapter, and today we're going to rank all four movies from the worst to the best. This is just my opinion. Feel free to put your ranking in the comments below. Now let's get into it. Coming up at number 4, we have John Wick Chapter 2. I think this is a really fantastic action film with a lot of creative stunts and cool cinematography and some of the best sequences in the entire franchise. I mean, this is what every action movie junkie would love to see in an action movie. And this still kind of follows the first film in terms of grounding the action, but there is a sense of heightenedness to it, with the bright neon colors being more prevalent here than in the first movie, where the first movie is it has a lot of neon colors to it, but it's more grounded, it's a lot more gritty, it's a lot more dark. Here, this feels like a more fantastical looking world in comparison to the previous film, and that's what I love about it. It felt distinct. My only problems with it and why it's at number 4 is that the beginning of the film took a bit of time to get going, and the emotional reason on why John Wick is back is good and pays off very well by the end. But I found the emotional reason on why John Wick came back into the fold in the first movie a lot more engaging and more investing. And that's just my opinion. You could feel differently about it, but to me, I prefer the first film because of that reason. So overall, still a great action film, but this is why it's at number 4. Coming up at number 3 is John Wick Parabellum, and it kicks off where the previous film left off, and John Wick is excommunicado, is trying to fight as many assassins as he can to survive, and trying to figure out how to gain his freedom. But once he figures out the harsh truth on how hard that is really going to be, and how it's going to be nearly impossible, he has to change his tactics and try to make some new plans along the way, rekindle some old relationships, get some help with some old friends, and it by the end didn't really amount much to anything, which is kind of the tragedy of the film. How John Wick kind of failed to really reach the goal he wants to achieve. But still, there's some great action set pieces here, and still some really fantastic stunt work. And I think the story here is a lot more investing and gets going a lot faster than in the previous film. The final fight isn't, like, in my opinion, the most engaging fight in the entire franchise, but it is still really fantastic stunt work, and is definitely at that point the biggest action set piece of the entire franchise. Up until a certain movie, but we'll get to that later. Coming up at number 2, we have the original John Wick. I remember watching this film for the first time and just being blown away. I love this film. I think it is one of the quintessential action films of its time. I think the characters are really interesting. The character of John Wick is awesome, and played by Keanu Reeves, he just knocks it out of the park on this character. His stunt performance and his acting as well is some of the best he has done in his career. The world building was very engaging, and it doesn't distract from the actual story that is telling about a man seeking revenge against some Russian mobsters who killed his dog. And watching this movie and seeing John Wick kill all these people who get in his way while trying to get the person who actually killed his dog was just so much fun to watch. I will say that the final fight felt a little bit tacked on, but other than that, this is a great action film that I hardly have much of a problem with, and that I can see myself rewatching over and over again. And unfortunately though, it doesn't compare to the latest and newest chapter of John Wick Chapter 4, which comes in at number 1. This has everything from the previous films that are great and just combines them all here to create a John Wick Odyssey. Sure, the realism and heightenedness of the film is like overboard at this point. Like, there's a few times where John Wick should have died, but honestly, everything else about the movie was so good that I could pretty much forgive it, and sometimes I actually forget the problems I had with it because I just had so much fun watching this film. I think the story is the overall best of any of the sequels it has told. I think it concluded the franchise in a very satisfying note. I think it helmed some of the best action sequences out of any of the John Wick movies. Some of the best cinematography and directing I've seen in an action film in quite a while. And a pace for a runtime of 2 hours and 49 minutes that is perfect. It never drags. There's never a dull moment. This is literally one of the best action films I have ever seen in my life. And I love this movie so much, guys. And if you haven't seen it in theaters, go watch it. I'm not going to spoil much of it here until I do my spoiler review next week. That'll be on my second channel, which I have all the movie reviews of the 4 movies already reviewed. So yeah, check that out when you get the chance. Just overall, despite my problems with some of these films, they're all still great movies. Like, even John Wick Chapter 2, I'd say, is an A- movie. All these movies, in my opinion, are fantastic in their own rights, and they helm some of the best action set pieces ever. And that's mostly due to Keanu Reeves being dedicated to this character, and these directors and stunt performers and writers caring about this franchise, these action set pieces, and this character. And while I'm going to assume that it just started off with like a movie that's supposed to be like a one and done, they added enough world building to create an overall interesting, overarching story that concludes in a very satisfying note by the end of the 4th film. I hope that they don't make it John Wick 5. I think the way John Wick 4 ended, I won't spoil, was very satisfying in my opinion. And just overall, I just love these movies, guys. If you haven't watched any of the John Wick movies, please go check them out. They are really fantastic films to watch. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.